It's time to pick a side. The border war is on the air with BG and TanMan.
Hello and welcome into episode 151 of the Border War. 151 total, number 2 for the afternoon. I am the TanMan. I'm here with BG. A reminder, you can follow the show on Twitter at the Border War. I can be found at Tar Heels TanMan, and my partner can be found at BG_Border War. Whichever way you like to listen to the show, whichever service you like to use, like and subscribe to the show. Leave us a review. That way people behind you will know that you think we are fantastic and much better than your local radio guys. In episode 151, we are going to be discussing kind of a little bit later on where the seasons kind of went off the rails a little bit for the Tar Heels and Gamecocks. But before we do that, of course, it's Monday as we're recording this. The college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesdays. And so a big story out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Maybe one of the more interesting, fun players in college football. We may have seen him likely play his last snap for the Crimson Tide. BG Tua Tagovailoa is el finito. He is done for the Crimson Tide.
He is. And, I mean, I don't want to get into the analysis of whether he should have been in the game.
Well, I think that's pretty clear. No. He shouldn't have been playing, period. But
you're right now that he's hurt.
I was right before the game. But listen, this is something that 2 months from now, 2 years from now, 20 seasons from now, this is going to be the championship that Alabama fans are going to look back on and be like, this is the one that we should have won. All right, kind of like 2016 and 2008 for North Carolina basketball. Like, this is going to be the one when they look back is going to be sick to their stomach because they could have beaten Mississippi State 35-7 with Mac Jones. Right? They could have done that. But now you're looking at Mac Jones getting tossed in there against Alabama or against Auburn in a couple weeks.
Here's the thing, though. We talked about
big mistake by Saban. He doesn't make many of them, but this was one.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That before we were both wrong. I mean, we did not think that Georgia would jump Alabama, but we did agree that wherever Bama went in that week, that might be as high as they could go.
Right.
If that's the case, they were already out. There was no avenue.
I think there was an avenue. I just think it was very narrow.
Well,
Not saying it couldn't happen, but I thought it was very narrow.
Right. I mean,
I think that avenue is almost non-existent.
Well, no. I mean, I don't think so. If it weren't, because I think they're going to win the exact same number of games without him as they were going to win the rest of the season with him. Mm-hmm. Mac Jones is going to go in there and surprise people. Now, is he going to be dynamic like Tua? No. Did Alabama have a different kind of offense with Tua? Absolutely. But Mac Jones has been way better than serviceable in the games he's played. Now, yeah, he shredded Arkansas, but let's just throw this out there. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there who wouldn't have those numbers against any SEC team. So, I mean, in a way, is this addition by subtraction? I don't want to say something that's going to make me sound like an absolute idiot here, but Alabama's going to get back to a basic kind of offense, I think. And what I'm saying is it's going to be good enough to beat everybody left on their schedule. And I think that will happen. Now, here's the real question. Does the playoff committee leave them out now just because Tua's gone? And we don't want to see that. We don't want to see them in there with this kid at quarterback who didn't really get them there.
Here's what first thing, Auburn's beating Alabama. So I think it's going to wind up being a moot point anyway. But let's say that
it depends on which Auburn shows up.
I think at home against not Tua.
I think the whole
today I'm going to take Auburn. That could
the
change
whole country thinks Auburn's going to beat Alabama. You know how I feel about that stuff.
I understand. So let's say you're right. Let's say Alabama wins and they go 11-1, just like they were going to go 11-1 anyway. Okay. Do you think that they're going to drill Auburn into the ground with Mac Jones?
No.
Okay.
No, I think
so. Let's say
31-28.
Okay. I kept hearing all weekend long about how we've seen this scenario before. Ohio State when J.T. Barrett went down, Cardale Jones comes in. The difference is, we can go back and look at it. Pretty sure Ohio State had a conference championship game to play.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure they got there. I think it was Wisconsin when they went up in that championship game and beat Wisconsin like 59-0. All right. Alabama's not going to get that chance. Mac Jones is not going to get that chance, man. And if
but it really just comes down to Auburn.
Him, huh?
It still just comes down to whether you think they're going to beat Auburn or not.
Okay, but even if they, even if they beat Auburn, I think that there were still other things that were going to have to. Like I believe a 12-1 Pac-12 champion is probably going to get that 4th spot over Alabama.
All I'm saying is that all Tua could have done was beat Auburn. He wasn't getting a conference championship either.
Right.
They were still going to get left out
but they're gonna
they get left out when they beat Auburn.
They're going to look at this piece of paper and go, all right, got Tua Tagovailoa, a backup quarterback.
That's what I'm asking you. Does it penalize them just because now they're not nearly as interesting?
But, I think it's interesting. It's because they're not the same team. Right. And they're going to go and they're going to beat Western Carolina 38-0 Saturday. And then they're going to go down to Auburn. And let's say they beat Auburn. They're not going to beat Auburn. They're not going to beat Auburn 38-14 like they could have if Tua had played.
Right.
I think this is it. I think that the day has finally come. The sun has finally set, and we are finally going to get a playoff without Alabama in it.
And that may stay that way for a little while.
Maybe.
I don't think that game last year was all just Clemson being that much better. There were some problems in that program. There were some problems with the way Saban had managed that coaching staff. And this year, I would say that the problem has been that Tua Tagovailoa was that whole offense. Like, as good as their wide receivers are, there just was very little balance. And you saw even with South Carolina early on, when South Carolina keyed on him and put pressure on him, their offense struggled. Now, once they ironed that out, it was fine. But point being, Saban 3 years ago was all about not having that kind of player at quarterback. And once he got one at quarterback, it was like he just couldn't quit playing with him.
Yeah.
I mean, just everything ran through that. And that leads to this kind of a situation.
Speaking of how he got there, we all know how he got the job. It was in that championship game, and Jalen Hurts couldn't manage the offense, and the rest is history. He goes to Oklahoma. I want to ask you, Oklahoma has been the team that all year long, for some reason, maybe it's Jalen Hurts, for some reason I've become an Oklahoma fan this season. And you hear, does Oklahoma have a path to the playoff? And I think the AP rankings come out, beating Baylor, it brings them up a couple spots to 8th in the AP poll, 7th in the coaches poll, brings them up a spot. I still think that they're going to be on the outside looking in.
I agree.
Because to me, I had this discussion with my dad over the weekend. To me, the committee has told you, listen, we don't like the Big 12. We don't believe anybody in the Big 12 is really any good. All you have to do is look at where they had Baylor when that's 9-0 in a power conference team.
Right.
And they were still somewhere down there around 11 or 12, whatever they were.
Yeah.
That's them telling you, we don't think that team's really any good.
Haven't beaten anybody.
And so what does Oklahoma have?
Right.
Who are they going to beat to jump ahead of Oregon or Alabama or Penn State or any number of these teams? There's nothing. Another game with Baylor in the championship game.
Right.
Okay, they've already told you they don't think Baylor's any good.
And you've already beaten them.
And you've already beaten
them. It didn't do anything.
And you were down 28-3.
No, I agree with you. I think Oklahoma had to go undefeated, and they didn't. And there it is.
I find it very disappointing because I I really was looking forward to the Jalen Hurts Tua matchup in the playoff, and now I feel a little robbed, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Here's the thing, though, and this is just me again. Obviously, I don't have a dog in this fight at all, but that's what college football has turned into. That's the unforeseen consequences of this. That a team like Oklahoma, who's probably going to finish the season 11-1, is just going to be an afterthought. I mean, that's just who we are now.
Yeah,
that's just who we are. There's only 4 teams that matter, and of those 4 teams that matter, typically only 2 of them actually matter.
Well, the last 3 or 4 seasons, only 2's mattered.
Well, that's all we've got to go on, though.
Let's see. The rankings come out tomorrow. Any change in any of that? I tend to think that the top 4 is going to stay.
It might just sit pat this week.
It's going to stand right where it is this week. I think you could see Oregon jump Alabama just because of the injury to Tua.
No, sure. Yeah, something down there could happen. Yeah.
But
I don't know that it matters anyway.
I'm still interested to see where they put Oklahoma. I don't think that they're going to be really any higher than...
They're not going to put them within shooting range.
7th maybe?
Yeah, it's about 7th, I would say.
7th, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out tomorrow. I think it'll look about the same. One team you can look far, wide, high, and low tomorrow night. You're not going to hear from either one of these 2 teams.
No.
The Tar Heels...
That would be the border war itself.
The Tar Heels and Gamecocks, after North Carolina's lost to Pittsburgh on Thursday night, they sit at 4-6. The Gamecocks go out to College Station. Difficult to watch. They sit at 4-7. So BG, shut up, Siri. I'm not talking to you. Great podcast there. BG 4-6, 4-7. Both of us, I think, started with some measure of optimism on the season. Where did we go wrong?
I don't know.
Where did things go wrong?
I don't know that I had as much optimism about South Carolina's season as you did. If I recall, when we talked about now you had a lot more. I was way lower on North Carolina's football program than I should have been. I had you finishing 1-7 in the ACC.
Honestly, we're North Carolina is probably right around where I thought they would be, somewhere in that 5 to 7 win range. You play out the string, you could wind up 6-6, and boom, you're right there. It's just starting off 2-0 that has left a taste in people's mouth.
And North Carolina could very easily have 2 more wins than they do. They could very easily have beaten Clemson and changed this entire football season for the whole country.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was right there. But they didn't. As far as South Carolina goes, I told you that I thought the absolute ceiling on this team this year was 8-4. That was the 5% half-court shot pipe dream season. And that I thought they would finish 6-6. I think that was my prediction for them. And that I remember you asking me what I thought the basement was. And I said 3 or 4 wins, man.
You did.
And you were like, no, this team's got more talent than that. And I was like, I'm telling you, I have seen nothing from this offense in the past season. This is me in August. That lets me think this is going to be a football season worth talking about. Man, and this is one of those times when I wish I had been wrong, but that game on Saturday, and I told you this off the air before we started, and I said I would say it again because I need to get this on the record. I am 46 years old. I have been watching football at least once, most of the time, 3 times a week since I was 10. And I have never seen a major football team at either of the 2 levels look as inept on offense as that team looked on Saturday. At one point, we were 0 for 10 for 3 third-yard conversions. The 2 we got were trash plays in the late stages of the game. I don't know. The guys on the message boards are all smarter than me. I don't know if it's Muschamp's fault. I don't know if it's Brian McClendon's fault. I don't know if it's both their faults. I don't know if Ryan Helinski can't throw the football or if our receivers can't run routes. I don't know what it is. But I did a solo show 4 or 5 weeks ago. And I said that I thought that my opinion was fire everybody on the staff. Mm-hmm. I said it 5 weeks ago. Fire everybody on the staff. What I said I thought would happen was that Muschamp would stay and he would have to hire new coordinators. I know you don't believe me. I still think he's going to be back next year.
No way.
Here's the thing, man.
No way.
Then why? The only way he's not is if Ray Tanner is fired too. Because if you're Ray Tanner, now you answer me this question and be honest. If you're Ray Tanner and you know you're going to fire your coach, or you're even thinking about firing your coach, listen, let me finish. You put out a statement, milquetoast, right? Something like, look, we support our football staff. We'll reevaluate things at the end of the season, but for right now, Will Muschamp's our football. No. That is not the statement he released. He went out of his way to say, Will Muschamp is our football coach. Will Muschamp will be our football coach going forward and for the 2020 season. Why do you say that if you don't have to?
Was that before or after your president opened his big mouth? That was after.
During, I think.
I think that was after the president opened his big mouth, right? He said, I don't believe any of that. Yeah. How many times have you heard an AD or a general manager on the pro level give the guy the pat on the back? Yeah, he's our guy.
You're not listening. That is not what he did.
I'm telling you, you're wrong.
That's not what he did. He didn't give him the pat on the back. He gave him an endorsement.
How many times have you heard he's our guy, he's our coach? How many times have coaches gotten that endorsement and been in the unemployment line 3 weeks later?
Not ever when the AD came out and said he will 100% be our coach next year. Now, you hear that in job searches, yes. But that isn't what Ray Tanner did.
Look at it.
So you're telling me that Bob Caslin's going to go around Tanner, or he's going to have to fire Tanner too. But Ray Tanner's not going to make the decision to fire Will Muschamp, period. He's not going to do it.
I'm telling you that these things aren't always the athletic director's call. Listen, I said it to you before we hit the on-air button. They're going to go down to Clemson, or Clemson's going to come to their place.
You had it right the first time. They're going to go down to Clemson because
Clemson's
coming
to town.
South Carolina is going to be orange.
That stadium is going to be 70% orange because Clemson fans are going to buy up all the tickets. They're going to beat your ass 70-6, right? And you're going to look back at this thing and go, the last month of the season, we've scored one freaking touchdown.
Yeah.
All right. It started with Tennessee. You got some ho-hum win against Vanderbilt. You had Appalachian State come in there and walk the dog on you for 3.5 quarters. And because you put half of a drive together and converted some ridiculous fourth downs, you even had a shot to win that football game. This team hasn't actually they haven't played a good football game since they beat Georgia. At the end of the year, it's going to be 2 months ago. They're going to run out of money. People are going to draw up the money. They're going to not buy the ticket, and money talks, man. How do you think Willie Taggart got fired at Florida State? It's because they all went around and said, listen, we are not coming back for this crap another year. Get this guy out of here. And every minute that goes by, this is why they've screwed up this schedule. Why in the world have you got a bye week right now? Why are you not playing Elon or Charleston Southern right now? So that you can have some goodwill, you can put some points on the board, you can you can try to stir up some good emotion, and maybe, just maybe, when Clemson comes to town, you can halfway have your fans believing you've got a chance. There's not a single person wearing burgundy and garnet, black river. Not a single South Carolina fan thinks that they have a snowball's chance to do anything against Clemson.
Yeah, but none of those issues are the issue at hand. So you either think that Ray Tanner makes this decision or he doesn't.
I think Ray Tanner's hand, at the end of the day, Ray Tanner's hand is going to be forced. And they're going to wind up, he's going to get outvoted on this.
South Carolina fans in the past have not reacted the way you said. Yeah, they'll sound like that. Were they absent after the UVA win to close last season? Sure they were. Did they show back up? Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying. It's never happened before. The interesting thing about it is that everybody wants to say you can't fire Muschamp, the people who were saying not to, because that's all South Carolina does. Who's the last coach South Carolina fired?
Brad Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, but you also...
But what I'm saying is, where does that reputation even come from?
Right, but listen, you also had two old guys that you were never going to fire. Either one of those two guys that came after Brad Scott.
They both fired themselves.
They both quit themselves. They were never going to... This was always going to be their last stop no matter what happens. You didn't have to fire them. If Steve Spurrier had won 50 games in a row, he was going to leave South Carolina. That was going to be it. You weren't going to fire that guy. But I think Tanner's hand is going to be forced. I just do not think, and this is just me putting myself into a South Carolina fan, you cannot convince me that it is worth my time or, more importantly, my money to invest in this program if you bring him back. After the way he... Now, if you had kind of spread some of these tough losses out, maybe he wins one. Okay. 5-7, okay. But to look the way they've looked the last 3 weeks, knowing what is on the horizon, this dude can't come back, man. It is over. It's done.
I don't believe you.
It's over.
I don't believe you. I think he will be our head coach next year.
Well, listen, I'll say this.
And here's the thing. I'll put it this way. I don't know if I care or not, because I'm not sure there's a way out of this for South Carolina. If you fire him after 4 seasons, when it's well known that he was hired and the athletic director guaranteed him 5, all right, then you've handicapped yourself on your next hire. I'm not sure why anybody would want to coach football at South Carolina anyway. Because here's the thing. I said this on a message board this week, and people just made fun of me the whole week because of it, but I'm going to stand by it. All Steve Spurrier really did at South Carolina was prove that even Steve Spurrier can't really win at South Carolina. They played for 1 conference championship. Their 3 best seasons, they didn't sniff an ACC title. Yeah, they won 11 games 3 years in a row, but they didn't play for a championship. I don't mean a national championship. They didn't even win. They didn't even win their division those 3 years. And then what happens? It falls apart and he leaves. So if you're the only hope you've got if you're South Carolina, and I've said this for years, is to get a young guy like Urban Meyer was when Utah hired him, right? Or like when Florida hired him. A guy that's had some success somewhere. But they need to let go of this idea of we need recruiting ties in the area, blah, blah. None of that means anything.
Stop it.
None of that means anything. Who has Will Muschamp actually recruited? Show me that our recruiting looks different than it did when Spurrier was coach or when Holtz was coach. In fact, I would argue that Holtz of the 3 brought in far better recruiting teams. He just didn't coach them very well. They played hard. They didn't play smart. Look,
and you're making my point to fire the guy though.
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying that they should keep him. I'm telling you they're going to.
All right, look,
there's 2 different arguments.
Next year, you're swapping out Alabama for LSU. I pulled up the schedule for the following year, and this is all tentative right now. But you're going to swap out LSU for Auburn the following year.
Well, yeah, it's the SEC. That's what we do.
Well, but I'm saying after that, you've got 2 more years where it's probably not going to get much better. And then after that, you're going to start drawing the Mississippi States.
But you're really just talking about one game. It's the same thing I said about this year's schedule. Everybody acts like, that picking up Alabama. Alabama's not the reason you've only got 4 wins. So
where did it go wrong for South Carolina? Pinpoint a spot in the season where you think, okay, we were on a track.
No. It was never.
So it was
track.
Never on track.
No. This was what you knew you were going to get the day you hired this guy as head coach. Because this is exactly what happened at Florida. Am I a hypocrite? Yeah. Because after we won 9 games, man, I jumped on board too. When you're a South Carolina fan, if you're not one, you don't understand. You don't understand what a little glimpse of hope feels like. Yeah, you're going to bite down on that apple as hard as you can, But you can look back to last year. You can look back to this year. He has hired nobody as an offensive coordinator. He even said in his opening press conference, I know I have to hire an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing. So what does he do? He hires Kurt Roper, who got him fired in Florida. Then, when that doesn't work, Dabo rolled the dice and won. Muschamp rolls the dice on somebody that's never even called plays before. Never even called plays. A guy that's already on staff. I think Brian McClendon's a great football coach. He is an absolutely awful offensive coordinator. He has no offensive system. And this has Will Muschamp's fingers all over it too. Balance. That isn't even a thing people talk about in football anymore. We're going to run the ball on first down. Everybody knows it. You've got a quarterback who doesn't feel comfortable in the system. We're throwing to receivers. It's landing at their feet. This is all coaching. I think we hit the iceberg the day he was hired. You might even want to say we hit the iceberg the day that we beat Miami in that bowl game, and you convinced Steve Spurrier to come back, because all of this is a chain of events all the way back to that.
You gone. I'm talking about just for this season. Just for where did the, because you can't say that this is what it's been all year. This is not what it's been all year long. This has gone off the path. This has veered off the path.
Minus the Georgia game, this is what it's been all year long.
I'm going to lay this right. I think it went off the rails the second half of the Florida game, when afterwards Muschamp spent so much time and so much energy talking about officiating. I think his team heard that, and ever since then, they went back. They went to Tennessee the next week and got steamrolled, and after that, they've done nothing on offense. They can't stop anybody. I think Muschamp. I think after Florida, when he wanted to put more of the blame on the officials, they made some terrible calls that game. We've talked about that.
Yeah. But you can't.
You can't make that the focal point of your emotion. You can't make that sound like you think that's why you lost.
He's not a head football coach, man. He's a D coordinator.
I agree with you. I hope for your sake that they can't get rid of him. But the point I was trying to make a couple minutes ago, if you keep him, if he stays, then I don't want to hear anything from any South Carolina fan about how our head coach stinks or how we need to do this. Because I'm telling you, do what Florida State did. Pony up the money. You can get his tail out of there.
Right.
Ray Tanner might not pull the trigger on that move himself, but if you force his hand, the trigger will get pulled. Now, whether or not that giant buyout, they're probably going to have to kick some in. If they kick some in, they can get rid of him. If they're not willing to kick any in, then you're probably right. They're going to hang on to him.
Yep.
If you're a big money donor, are you tossing money in for it? Does it mean that much to you that you would put your money to get rid of this guy?
Not if Ray Tanner is going to make the hire, no, because it's not going to change. He's going to go make another dumbass hire. He's going to hire another failed head coach because he's more concerned with coaching and where you come from and where your recruiting ties are than he is with what you've shown. We're not going to go get the guy we need.
See, I don't know who. If that's the route you want to go, I don't know who you would go hire. Like if you wanted to go hire another retread, I mean, who are you talking about?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I would have to think about it for a second.
Yeah, I don't know. But
everybody keeps talking about that Chad Morris going to Columbia as the offensive coordinator next year, which I think is an absurd thing.
I think that's a fantastic idea. If he's going to stay, go hire that man.
But he's not going to. You can't hire that man. He's not going down there. He's not. There is no amount of money we're going to pay. We're going to pay that would make him go there. But it wouldn't be surprising to me if they fired Muschamp this year that he offers him the head coach. That's the kind of crap I'm talking about. Right there. Someone who's shown you that all they can do is train wreck a program in 2 years. I could see that guy getting our head coaching job. Absolutely. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
They wouldn't hire Morris as a head coach. They would be happy to bring him in as offensive coordinator, but they wouldn't hire him as head coach.
Well, if not him, then somebody like that. That's all I'm saying. Ray Tanner is not going to go young, exciting, upcoming. He's not. Which is why there's a movement. Look, let's be honest here. You've heard more press about people and the big money donors in Columbia trying to get rid of Tanner than you have Muschamp, because they understand exactly what I do. He's not going to hire a football coach you can win with. He's not.
This has, we said it last week, this has become the Kemba Walker story of 2019 for the show. I don't think that you can talk about South Carolina football without discussing the job security or lack thereof of Will Muschamp. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
I think it all went south actually when they didn't tip that pizza driver.
Well,
I think that's what did it.
If you were a big money donor, would Ray Tanner even take your money?
I mean,
that might be an interesting question. That might be a more interesting question.
Well, he doesn't know that I wasn't a big money donor when he blocked me on Twitter. He didn't know who I was.
Nah, he's got access to that list. He knows.
Yeah, but my name's not on my Twitter account.
Nah, trust me, man. A powerful man like Ray Tanner, he knows who you are.
Ray Tanner's 5'6". He's not that powerful. He
probably knows exactly. He knows about us. He's probably listening right now.
Why don't we talk about North Carolina? How about that?
Well, look. For North Carolina, we're sitting at 4-6. I've said it before. When you're 2-0 after you've won 5 games in the previous 2 years, I think expectations start to balloon quite a bit, and North Carolina is no exception to that one. Look, you've got 2 winnable games. Obviously, Mercer this upcoming week, which we were smart. We did schedule a cupcake the next to last week of the season. So we'll get to 5 wins as a floor. And then you're going to go to NC State. Listen, that could be a game that NC State's not a good football team, but that could be a game where North Carolina and North Carolina State are both sitting at 5 wins. The winner gets bowl eligibility. The loser's season is over with. It is on the road at NC State. That is exactly the scenario that I did not want to happen. That is exactly why I thought the Pittsburgh game Thursday night was probably the biggest game thus far for Mac Brown and the Tar Heels. They lose another one in overtime. Again, at 2-0. Now you're sitting here at 4-6. If I've got to pinpoint a place where I think it went wrong, I think it's I'm going to say it's the overtime game, the 6 overtime game at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, because that's the thing that launched the narrative that you've been talking about, which is you can get right up to the door with this team. You can't kick it down. Yeah. And, man, if you haven't been 100% right about that, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I think in basketball I buy into that stuff. It's such a small group of guys, right? Yeah. That psychology. Sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical about that kind of talk in football when people talk about, well, what's really going on in the locker room? Man, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the locker room. But you've kind of sold me on this because about 3 weeks ago, you said this North Carolina team was coached well enough, had enough talent just to be competitive. But when it came down to making that play, they couldn't do it. And you're right. That's exactly who they are. Look at the games they've lost, man. They really, if every one of those games had gone the other way, they'd be sitting at like 8 or 9 wins right now.
Here's their losses: 6 points, 3 points, 1 point, 2 points, 7 points, 7 points.
And the 7-point games came in overtime.
That's their
Those
losses.
7-point games aren't even really 7-point games, though. They were tied going into, and then North Carolina turns the ball over and doesn't get to kick the field goal or whatever.
I think North Carolina is a team that if they were playing someone that last week of the season, let's say they're playing a Clemson, or they're playing someone like a Virginia or Virginia Tech, a game that they could affect the conference race, I think that other team would be scared to death.
Right.
But listen, the narrative has continued on into this season that has plagued them the last few years is injuries. They cannot shake. They're constantly, it seems like they've lost this. It feels like they've lost half a dozen DBs. They've got guys that had no plans to play this year. They've got them playing back there. They've had some guys on the defensive line, some NFL guys on that defensive line that have missed time, and yet the only constant seems to be, no matter what's going on around him, Sam Howell's going to give you an opportunity to win at the end of the day. I tend to think that I would give it at this point, I would give it a 50-50 coin toss on whether or not they would get to the 6 wins. On the road at NC State is not going to be an easy task, but if the season has been any indication, North Carolina is going to at least
they're going to be right there at it. They'll be in that game with a minute left, one way or the other.
Here's my big picture prediction for North Carolina. BG, next year, I think they play Auburn down in Atlanta. You know, the road games. They pick up Boston College. They go to Central Florida. I think next year feels like a 7 or 8 win team, maybe 9, where they throw their hat in the conference race. But I'm pegging. I'm going to call it now. In 2022, North Carolina's going to be in the college football playoff mix. They don't play Clemson. They don't play Clemson as a conference game for the foreseeable future. You can't find a future schedule that has them pegged to play Clemson. By 2022, you get Notre Dame at home, Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, NC State. They're road games. Duke, Miami, Virginia, Wake, App State. Sam Howell's senior year, North Carolina's in the college football playoff. What do you think about that?
Is there anything else on the roster for today? I mean,
no.
I think we can just end the
North Carolina.
We can just end the show with that. I got nothing, man.
No. In 2021, we're gonna throw our hat in the ring for the ACC, but by 2022, we're gonna come on this show, and North Carolina is gonna be in the college football playoff.
All right.
Who gets there first, us or you?
Oh, neither. What are you talking about, man?
You don't think that you don't think we could get there at any point ever?
No, I don't.
See, we're gonna go out and hire y'all. Y'all don't want to hire Chad Morris. We're gonna go hire Chad Morris next year.
No, I mean I could see him going to North Carolina because it wouldn't.
We're gonna because
it wouldn't directly offend the man who gave him his career.
There's enough junk around some of the North Carolina fan, and they've got a point. Some of the play calling that we've had late in games is really questionable. Too many times they feel like they want to chunk the ball down the field, pass, and then you look up and you stay in third. This is a big problem early on. It seemed like they were at 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 every trip. Man.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just every possession. It was always 3rd and 10. And so I think I could see us making a change offensive coordinator and bringing Morris in.
I wish I had any
inkling
of what was going to be going on in Columbia in 2022.
But no, I say that half jokingly to say that I think the future at
There's
North
no
Carolina.
question he's getting recruits.
I think the future is extremely bright at North Carolina. So for all the ones that were ready to, that are just constantly in a state of negativity because we're 4-6. Listen, guys, please. Stop it. Relax. At 6-6,
how old is Matt?
I don't know. He's probably in his 70s.
Is he? I mean, he's younger than Spurrier.
I have no idea. How old is Spurrier? I would guess they're probably about the same age.
Yeah, I wonder at what point that becomes an issue. And I don't know that Spurrier's age was so much an issue.
Well, to me, here's the thing with Mac Brown. His age, he is... my guess is he's probably 74.
That's how old Spurrier is.
Yeah, he's probably somewhere in that ballpark. But to me, Mac Brown strikes me as the coach that's the overseer. Yeah,
Mac Brown's only 68.
Oh, wow. But he strikes me as the guy who just kind of, runs the show.
Yeah.
He's not the hands-on.
But at the same time,
he's not coaching a position group like Will Muschamp.
You have to keep paying attention. Like at some point.
Who does he keep on his staff? That's to me, that's the key. Who does he keep on staff?
I agree with that. I'm just saying there's a reason. Paterno obviously, and I don't want to get into Penn State stuff.
That's a rabbit hole. You don't.
But what I'm saying is, even though he was nothing but a CEO, at some point his age meant that the guys he was hiring they knew they didn't really have to explain anything to Joe Pa. They could just do what they wanted, and it became a problem. I just wonder, and it doesn't matter when Mac Brown, because obviously right now it's not working. If guys are trying to recruit against him by saying, "Man, y'all know he's not going to be there for 5 more years," but in 2022, that could be a thing that people really start to wonder, all right, who is going to be my next head coach? Keep in mind, This is a guy that named Will Muschamp his coach in waiting 10 years ago.
And then decided,
but what I'm saying
mind.
is 10 years ago it was in the cards. And it hasn't gone away.
Got a point, but to me, it's about who he surrounds himself with, and he's a guy that's very relatable to recruits. And a recruit can go to your office, or you can go to a recruit's house, and you can spin that tale. But when I get that kid on my campus, and I sit down and talk to him in my office, or I'm at his house, I don't think that's going to be an issue for Mack Brown.
I think like I said, so far you're absolutely right. It has not been.
As an older guy, I think he relates to the kids in a way that most other 68-year-olds don't relate to. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I don't think that was a problem that I was concerned about when they hired him. How would that work? But it doesn't seem to be an issue, and so I don't really expect it to be an issue going forward.
I just thought of a failed coach South Carolina could hire.
Who?
Gene Chizik.
I've thought about that, but that's a name that came to my mind.
Would not surprise me at all.
That's a name that came to my mind, but Chizik
doesn't not surprise me.
He doesn't want to get back into the rat race. I think
not down there.
I think he's perfectly fine where he's at, man.
I'm just saying, keep your eye on that kind of guy, though.
Yeah.
That's what Ray Tanner wants.
Yeah. Episode 151. We are finished. Couple minutes. You can email the show. We'll have our picks up on Twitter. Here, I think we both went 5-5 this week. I don't think you made up any ground, but we didn't go 1-9 like we've done sometimes. So you can email those in.
I'm going to say it on the air. We need to go back to just picking games next year. This spread junk is for the birds, man.
We did fine last year.
We were lucky. You don't beat the spread. That's the whole point.
We did fine last year. So again, at Carolina Border War at gmail.com. You can email all those things in.
All these other clowns are on the air just picking against the who's going to win, and here we are making ourselves look bad.
You want to tell BG he's wrong, that Will Muschamp is on the way out?
I would love to be wrong.
If you want to agree with my long-term prediction, the Tar Heels are on their way.
No one's going.
Listen, they are on their way to the college football playoff. Mark it down, baby. 2022. The year of the Tar Heel.
Yeah, put that in the book.
It's in the book of promise, baby. It's in stone on the mountain.